Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this 4th of July showdown. It's going to be the Empire facing off against the Dwarves. We are coming in with 4 Hellstorm rocket batteries and Balthazar Gelt. Let's get this party started and have some fun. So this is a recent tech I've kind of been working on in this matchup that I've had pretty good success with. Granted, I would still say the matchup's probably an 80-20 in favor of the Dwarves if you're playing an equally skilled opponent. However, I do think that depending on the map and obviously your decision making, you still can pull off the wins and do your thing. So, one thing the Dwarves really struggle with are Hellstorm rocket batteries. They annihilate their infantry, and if the Dwarves try and go artillery trading with you, you have superior range on the Hellstorms, and you can also use Balthazar Gelt to drop bombardments on their artillery, and you typically will win the artillery trade. So the best way for Dwarves to win this is basically just to spam a million units, just get absolutely wrecked in value, and win on points. That's been my experience. And if, the Empire doesn't go artillery spam, you're basically just going to lose against the Dwarves in straight up fighting. So this has been, I think, one of my favorite styles for sure. Balthazar Gelt is interchangeable. You can mix in like some combat characters with armor piercing if you want to. Lots of cool ideas. So, triple handgunner, Hellstorm rocket battery, handgunners move up, and our entire reserve is basically greatswords and cavalry. So, greatswords obviously can trade well against dwarves if you're able to kind of take down their missiles. Now, for the dwarven line, longbeards, quarrelers, double Thane is a really nice tech. They're hard to snipe and certainly take quite a bit of effort to kill, and they barely cost anything, which I like quite a bit. It's going to be Slayers and some Iron Drakes as well. So, very, very cool stuff, guys. We'll do a little bit of fast forwarding while we get the battling in position here. So the Hellstorm rocket battery is going to be getting set up here, and now the Holy Fire of Sigmar is going to be raining. This feels wrong for sure. Like, as far as my competitive factions and factions I enjoy to play in multiplayer, I would say that Empire, Dwarves, Khorne, Demons of Chaos, and maybe a little bit of Vampire Coast are the factions that I like to main. I don't really enjoy playing Coast that much these days, but yeah, so whenever I have to play against my fellow Dowie, it always hurts my soul. But yeah, you can see they're getting hammered pretty hard by those Hellstorms, right? And what's really good is with the current domination, you can unsummon them when they run out of ammo and get a pretty decent little refund. So as long as you don't lose them, you're going to be okay here. So Dwarves coming in for a cheeky little operation here in the back. They do have their Skyhammer looking to fly in, but I did have these silver bullets nearby, and of course my opponent cannot see the silver bullets. So I'm going to be able to kind of pull Gelt back, and that's another reason why I like Gelt. He can chase gyrocopters. Yes, Boris can, but Boris usually I don't think can catch them. I think he's around the same speed, but Gelt actually has 105 speed and can put some hurt on those things, which is always fun. So yeah, good trading initially, right? We're hammering down these units, big volley fire, and this is like pretty much the dream start. And also he's going to be moving into a blunder here as my double handgunners are moving back to cover. Obviously he wants to shut down the Sunmaker, so probably going to be trying to get a bombing run on that. But silver bullets don't mess around. Those things thump. So big shots right there. You can see a ton of HP going down off the Gyro Bomber, and they don't have much HP to begin with. So Balthazar Gelt's also going to be coming in. I did drop the crew off the Sunmaker to try and run away, and this is pretty much like the worst start you could possibly, have for the Dwarves. Like the Gyro Bomber gets absolutely wrecked by Balthazar Gelt, and the Hellstorm rocket battery is still just putting a ton of firepower in. When the Dwarves are down like 2,000 value already, which is pretty insane. So like pretty ideal. Now, one thing that I really should have done is considering after killing the Gyro Bomber, I should have summoned in some sort of an artillery piece here to start punishing this position. That would have been a strong play, but nonetheless, it's going fine. So we do have our double Empire Captain. I'm a big fan of the Empire Captains. The Thanes do win in straight combat, but Empire Captains with Plague of Rust from Balthazar Gelt can actually kill Dwarf characters. That's another kind of synergy in this build here, as the handgunners are going to move up. And as long as we focus the Quarrelers and missiles with the Hellstorm rocket batteries, then we're going to be able to get some good shooting for sure. So handgunners, let's see how they do. Going to be blasting into the Thane. So the Thane is getting Last Samurai pretty good. He does have a bronze shield, and he's a very small target there, so should be able to mitigate some of that. Greatsword's on the way up, so you can see I have 1 Greatsword, 2, and 3. So just kind of doing a bit of a slow push on the Dwarves and just trying to value trade them and soften them up to the point where I can move up and take that objective, which isn't going to be easy. Because even like a basic Dwarven Miner can probably trade evenly with a Greatsword for a third the cost, right? So Greatsword gets blasting charged and then has to fight one of them in melee with their armor piercing. The Greatsword will win, but it's a very cost-effective trade for the Dwarves. 300 against 900 gold, and they probably trade like just so upward there. So firepower, Sigmar's Holy Powder, still getting a lot of damage, and the Dwarves probably regret here having ever taught the Empire anything and exchange technology as the Empire Captains continue to grind through the Dwarven lines. A little bit trapped up right here in these Dwarf Warriors, but nonetheless, you can see a hellish amount of firepower as we are up 4,000 value to 128 right now. So pretty stark lead for sure. But now some of the bows are in range. You can see handgunners take a little bit of work. And on the side, I saw some blasting charges move up, so it's a good opportunity for some Vanguard units. So the Zintless Reiksguard Knights are going to be coming out and just giving these Dwarves the business. So big charges. They get punted by these Empire Cavalry. And that's the way to do it, man. Definitely got hammered. Empire Captain's trying to grind through here, and the Hellstorm rocket batteries. You got to make sure you're switching targets a lot. If you're an Empire player who's kind of struggled with this matchup before, as I'm sure we all have, you have to be really effective at kind of switching targets back and forth, as Balthazar Gelt does do an overcasted Searing Doom there. Does a little bit of damage. Typically the magic isn't going to be brutal against dwarves, but you got to do what you got to do. Now Thane diving into the backfield, and he's tough to kill. Even a handgunner unleashing full salvos on him doesn't do that much damage. Probably going to need something a little bit stronger, like Balthazar Gelt's Cane moving in with like a Plague of Rust. But the Zentler's Reiksguard Knight's doing a good job, really buckling that 600 gold miner unit. And now we got Free Company Militia moving up on the side, because I know I need to start getting some momentum here, because as good as his trading is going, the dwarves are holding on to the points. And, they can just keep summoning tanky, cheap infantry all day. And if my artillery runs out of ammo, the momentum of this battle can really, really shift for sure. Because, obviously it's very dominant now, but when I do run out, it's going to be tough. So, this is a good tool. Empire Knights, Reiksguard Knights, using them to shut down blasting charges is very strong. Typically, they don't take much damage from those things, and we do get a big charge and also waste some of the ammo in those blasting charges, but nice Slayer plays. Slayers are going to be running into the back there, into those Reiksguard Knights, and we're going to have to kind of peel back this way, as Free Company Militia do use their pistols and get some damage into these Slayers. So Empire Captain's finally up on the point, and Greatsword's moving up as well. Going to be kind of blocked up as the Rangers do kite them a little bit, but Greatswords are so cool looking. I think they're one of my favorite units in the game. It's a shame they're not very good. Greatswords could definitely use some buffs and or a substantial cost reduction. But moving up on, they will be able to defeat the Longbeards, especially with the Empire Captain. But there are a lot of dwarves here. They're going to be fully surrounded by just dwarven infantry. The other Greatsword's on its way up. Meanwhile, Slayers on the side, continuing to fight against my Free Company Militia. And the Free Company Militia might be able to hold back Slayers. Granted, I don't know, Slayers do hit really hard against light armor, so I feel like it's going to be a little bit trying for them. So, isn't this crazy though, how you can, if in any other matchup, if you were ahead by like 7.7k to 2, it would basically be over. But the fact that it's the dwarves versus the Empire, which is just, you have a couple things that do work, but the rest of your roster is so inefficient against them that this is still a contested game. Like, a lot of you guys watching are probably like, yeah, this is over here, but I can assure you it's going to be a scrap. So Great Swords beating down the Dwarven Thane. Pretty ideal. Man, that Thane is giant. I mean, hero characters are typically pretty large, right? But Thane's going to be taken out for sure. Anti-infantry is infantry, and they are able to get the break here as we do get more Dwarf Warriors pushing into my backfield. Balthazar Gelt just kind of flying around. He's got about 500 value. He's not useless. He's casting Plague of Rust here and there and, supporting spells. As the Empire Captains do their thing, and Great Swords just being bad, as usual. They just get surrounded and beaten down by Longbeards and just shot by a couple Corlers, and they somehow find a way to die. Most likely some friendly fire. All things, just to be completely honest, there's probably a little bit of friendly fire action there, but tried my best not to. There's a lot going on. It's hectic. So the Dwarf player is going to be pulling stuff from the side objective, leaving it relatively undefended. I mean, still 2 Dwarf Warriors, which would take me a considerable amount of effort to deal with. Demogryphs with lances are kind of an interesting idea as well. It's something I've wanted to experiment with in this matchup, but every time I do it, I'm always disappointed. Same with Great Swords. But Zentler's Reiksguard here, finally back on their feet, but now going to be shot a little bit as the Hellstorm rocket batteries continue to unleash their salvos. The Sunmaker is gone. It used all of its ammo, so I did unsummon it at that point. But despite the value differential, the dwarves are still pushing me. They're still putting pressure on my battle lines. Which is, quite stressful. Great Swords trying to chase down Slayers, and Slayers running around in Empire backfields is incredibly, incredibly annoying to deal with. Typically you have to use Cav to kind of pin them down because Great Swords and your infantry have very low speed. Great Swords only have 28 speed. They're like the same as Chaos Warriors. Big bombardment there. I definitely screwed up. I thought I cast it a little bit off, and it did a lot of damage against my Reiksguard Knight. So that was a pretty big blunder, but again, not the end of the world. We still have a good value lead, so things are looking okay. So now I'm going to start playing the side objective a little bit. I saw there was no shooting here, so we pull in some grenade launchers. Grenade launchers obviously not amazing against dwarves, but they have more armor piercing than people give them credit for. So they're going to just start unleashing some Sigmarite powder fire here into those guys. Let's see what kind of damage we can do. That was pretty good. That was about 1,000 damage right there. So if we could just kind of keep that momentum. My opponent responds by summoning out some Rangers. Rangers are a very, very good answer against grenade launchers. And it looks like the Dwarven push is being stifled here. Some of the Reiksguard Knights did get beat up, but the Dragonback Slayers are no joke. Like, they're going to take some serious effort to remove. As Balthazar Gelt tries to bombard these miners with blasting charges once again. Probably should have got a more static unit, but like the Dwarves are looking really, really bare bones. Like, they have some miners back here, they have a couple units, they have some Iron Drakes, but really not a whole lot. Grenade launchers pursuing these units. My opponent is trying to run with them, but we are getting some good work done. Not committing too much to that flank, just kind of knowing that this is going to be a game where I'm going to need a triple cap most likely, just based on how long it takes to remove the dwarves. Because like my great swords, like you would think like, if it were like Chaos and you got some Chaos Warriors up here, they would not get removed that easily, and I probably would have been able to get the objective. But obviously Empire not known for its like super durable infantry, so I'm not able to get it, right? And despite getting several great swords and 2 characters fighting there, I just can't break through the dwarven position. Handgunner's doing very well, many of them accruing decent value and able to kind of really hammer these overextending dwarven units. And where greatswords shine is like on the defense, like where your opponent is like coming into your territory and they're not subject to being like focus fired and things like that. And they have gotten about 800-900 value, so at least these ones have paid for themselves, which is quite nice. Those Dwarf Warriors going to be routing here. Hellstorm Rocket Battery starting to run out of ammo, so going to be unsummoning them to get them back in ye old pool here, as Sterling's Revenge are now on their way up. So I know I need to get the triple cap. We're going to be playing for it pretty hard. Home objective, we do have capture weight there, but Dwarves going to be summoning out Dwarf Warriors and Thanes, and you saw how tough it was to actually remove those units, right? Balthazar Gelt, he's almost paid for himself. He only costs about 1,100, and the Iron Drake's chasing down Silver Bullets, just going to be running out of range to try and mitigate some of that. Meanwhile, Dwarves still pressuring with blasting charges, which are just an extremely, extremely strong unit. Very tough to remove. Got to unsummon the Hellstorm Rocket Battery as well. So will we have enough time? 14,000 to basically 7. I mean, that is a colossal value lead, like absolutely colossal here. As Outriders with grenade launchers going to be lining side in those Rangers, and we do summon in some greatswords to get this point. So looking at the current kind of dynamic of this point, this is more or less guaranteed that we're going to get this. I'm investing a lot in this point. We have the Reiksguard Knights, we have the greatswords, Sterling's Revenge, as well as grenade launchers. I need it, but we're in a triple cap situation. Currently, my opponent has 1,000 points to my 500, so I would need to get a triple cap here. So it's really going to be the Dwarves just probably spamming out units on their home objective like all day. It doesn't really require, you just gotta just move them up and just let them fight. You don't have to get too crazy at this point. Just hold the line, basically, right? So Reiksguard Knights do weave through the seam. We're able to kind of get past his Dwarf Warriors here. Going to be getting a thunderous charge into these Squirrelers, or these are Rangers. Oh, even squishier. That's perfect. So they're going to get wrecked pretty badly. Yeah, the Reiksguard Knights looking extra cool, and Rangers, decent melee defense at 26. But they are going to be paying the price a little bit. So more and more great swords moving in. We do have Free Company Militia and grenade launchers. They are getting ready to party as well. And we are making our way to that third objective as the Dwarves have some tattered remnants of troops attacking my Free Company Militia. But I think the Free Company should be able to win this. Although even a couple blasting charges from this like beat unit of Veterans Miners. Look how much damage that does. Blasting charges are so incredibly good. Bit of a mistake here not unsummoning this. And yeah, playing the game, long game, my opponent still has 400 points to go, so even though greatswords are slow as hell, I feel like they should have 32 speed. 28 is like Warriors of Chaos like level stuff, right? They're wearing like not as heavy plate. They don't have giant tower shields. Like they should have 32 speed for sure. 28 is very, very weird. Balthazar Gelt with a little bit of a bombardment right here. Obviously saw my greatswords run death's bed, so I'm like, all right, let's send him to Sigmar with a little bit of love. And we do get some decent damage. That wasn't bad. Grenade launchers, pretty good at clearing out infantry. I think against dwarves, you typically want to bring one grenade launcher. I think that's like a good inclusion. Once you're able to soften up the archers, they can come in. But even a really beat unit of Quarrelers is putting quite a bit of damage on them. And now the side objective is going to be going to the Sons of Sigmar. So we do have a double cap, so you guys will kind of get an idea of the score right now, as the greatswords will cut through these dwarf warriors, but pretty easily. These ones haven't been on the battlefield yet, so it's their first battle, and we'll see what kind of work they can do. They're going to try their best to get through these dwarves, but not going to be walk in the park, as the dwarves do hold a lot longer than you would expect. So on the other side, grenade launchers pulling back, dwarf warriors chasing, and for some reason I felt like they were running so fast, but it's because the model formation was like really, really loose here. And my Empire Captain and some cavalry, Balthazar Gelt trying their best to chase down these dwarf warriors here. Dwarves don't have a whole lot in the back, but they do have just chain summons of Slayers coming out, and Slayers are a very difficult piece for the Empire to remove. They trade well against most of your infantry, and honestly don't do badly against greatswords either, just because of how good their stat line is. And the dwarves also have a really, really good vanguard point here, right? So they can vanguard these miners up, and any of my infantry that come up are probably going to have to pay the price, which is going to be very tough. Nonetheless, though, big value lead, 16,000 to about 9, so that's really, really substantial, guys. Greatswords. And the Sterling's Revenge going to be heading up. Currently, as the points do stand, I would be winning in 6 minutes and 47 seconds. My opponent in 4 minutes and 8 seconds. So a little bit precarious, to say the least. Another bombardment from Gelt. Hasn't been terribly devastating, but he's been useful enough. He's gotten about 1,100 value. I guess you could use someone like Franz in this matchup. Franz could be interesting. Like if your opponent's going to be spamming crossbows, or like a Boris Todbringer character, just to like get in there and hammer down like Thanes and whatnot, you could also use Marcus Wolfhard. I mean, there's a lot of cool ideas. That's why the Empire is so fun. There's so much theory crafting and ideas you can kind of mess with in this matchup. So Free Company Militia rushing up to the point, basically desperation mode right now. Like, despite just the points, I was so surprised there were so many dwarves left on the battlefield. Slayers, dwarf warriors, miners with blasting charges, the double Thanes, which I think cost about, the Empire Captains cost 350. They're really cheap, but these guys I think cost 500 or 600. They're a little bit more expensive here. So will the Greatswords of Sigmar be able to get to that point, and will they capture it? Empire Knight's going to be charging into the back of the miners with blasting charges here, as the Outriders with grenade launchers continue their efforts up towards the high ground objective. No more artillery, obviously, and at this point, resummoning the artillery wouldn't be that effective. It would probably friendly fire a lot of my units, and would also take a little bit of time to get in position here. So it's basically just summoning Greatswords and Cavalry, which I do have a couple of. I have 2 Empire Knights and 2 Reiksguard Knights, one of which is the Zintler's Reiksguard. And we have a lot of elite units moving up on the side. So Greatswords here, but this is the problem. Dwarven basic, like trash tier units, outtrade Empire elite infantry. So that is really, really the precarious thing. So it's going to be very messy. But Greatswords versus Slayers will be quite good if I can actually get that fight. Looks like they're intercepted by some of these Dwarven Miners with blasting charges here. So the Greatswords should be able to get through them pretty easily. And they have accrued decent value, although this is their second summon. So it looks like in their first life, they almost paid for themselves. Not quite. Using Empire Knights to intercept reinforcements is a bit of a roadblock unit. Empire Knights are just an excellent roadblock, much like Jade Lancers for Grand Cathay. So capture weight comes into our favor a little bit. Grenade launchers going to be hammering into these Dwarf Warriors, but more and more just cheap chaff Dwarf Infantry are on their way in. And look at the damage those blasting charges did. One of my elite units here just instantly wrecked by those. And I'm going to try and get in. They still have more blasting charge salvos as well. So this is not the end of those. Like 2 blasting charge salvos would bring Greatswords down to like 40%, maybe 50, which is quite painful. More units on their way. Handgunners coming up. Greatswords. We got Reiksguard Knights. And the units and reinforcements. I did have some cavalry here. Just making sure the dwarves didn't backcap me. But they're going to be hustling up. It's all hands on deck now, ladies and gentlemen. As my opponent will be winning in 1 minute and 52 seconds if I'm not able to get the objective. Empire Captain trying his best. Grenade launchers getting some really, really nice damage. And Greatswords are getting value done. Fighting Slayers, though. 69 Slayers. That's what she said. They are not messing around, as these handgunners not going to be great in melee. But I'm desperate. I need to capture weight here. So I'm just trying to get them on the point. But the dwarves have so much capture weight. Like, despite me getting all these units up, they have 15 capture weight against me. Oh my god, it's brutal. And they are so difficult to kill. Like, I just can't move them off the point quick enough. The Thanes obviously count for 3 apiece, which is very, very substantial. Reiksguard Knight's going to be able to deal with these blasting charges most likely, and other Greatswords are on their way up. So it just feels like it's so tough to remove them. So here they come. Big, big charge right there. And that is the business. So those Miners blasting charges probably will be getting melted here, but Rangers on their way up. We do also get some more Miners on their way. And now we only have 1 minute to get the point. So even though we are value trading pretty well, we're up by about 7,000 or 8,000 value, maybe 6. Actually, it looks like they closed the gap a little bit. It's still going to take too long probably to get the dwarves off the objective, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll do a little bit of fast forwarding to close out the game. And yeah, just a little bit of retrospect on the build. I think it worked pretty damn well. I was very happy with that. My opponent is a top tier tournament player as well, so it wasn't like I was just, it was a good player playing, right? So I think that the game was winnable. It's such a bad matchup for the Empire that despite being up 8,000 value, you still really have to struggle to get the W. But the big blunder I made was after I killed the Skybomb. Like, there were so many mistakes in the beginning, right? The Skyhammer dying, just units getting blasted. The big mistake we made was not playing the low ground. I waited too long. I value traded too greedily. I needed to make a concentrated push on that low ground objective earlier. And I think what would have been the game-winning play, just like a simple one-move play that would have changed everything, is having a Sunmaker or a Hellblaster volley gun on the low ground, just clearing him off that objective so I could have taken it quicker, because I could have easily won if I just got a 2-cap earlier, right? And that was a big gameplay decision-making blunder, which I certainly will try my best not to make again in this matchup. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. It was kind of cool. We got to see some Greatswords do okay. One of them did good, but the rest of them kind of got blasting charged. And yeah, I like the build. I think the handgunners are pretty solid. What would I change in retrospect? I'd probably go 1 less Greatsword and get 3 Spearmen instead. So cut the Chevrons, cut 1 Greatsword, and 3 more Spearmen just for extra capture weight. So in a situation like that, I can maybe flood an objective with just State Trooper bodies. But man, they get one-shotted by blasting charges, so it's really tricky. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Well played to my opponent. We'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves, and that is going to be it for today.